Okay, so hello everyone. As we wait for all the audience to join, let me just go ahead and have a slow start. So this is a very first official talk series that we are kicking off called the AI plus X Forum run by School of Computing at KAIST. And the series is called Meet the Data Scientist. And through this experience, we would like our student members, our School of Computing faculty members, or anyone interested have the chance to meet the data scientists who are working as data scientists at the moment, and they're going to bring a whole set of experience from their past. And hopefully what we ask to the speakers is not just to introduce their domains, but introduce what was their life trajectory to become a data scientist, and whether they can share some of the experience like the failures, successes, and also talk about maybe one or two topics that's really exciting in their field. So we're going to meet a lot of different people through this talk series, and you will be able to find this at the aix.kais.ac.kr. We have, I think we have about 4 different sessions happening on different dates, which will all be put together into a single series. And I'm really happy that we're starting that very first talk series. We're kicking that off officially. So let me introduce our speaker today. So our speaker is Professor Jaehyuk Park from KDI. He's a newly joining faculty at KDI, and KDI is in Sejong. And you will recognize that Jaehyuk has really diverse background. So I'll just go through his brief biography. So he got his PhD in informatics from Indiana University in US. But prior to that, he was also in your shoes, meaning that he was a KAIST graduate. So he graduated from Graduate School of Cultural Technology, doing his master's together with me and Professor Won-jae Lee. And then he got his bachelor's degree in economics from Yonsei University. So you could see he has like very different experiences that he can bring together. And he has also worked as a visiting scholar at the Kellogg School of Management. And he also was a research scientist at core data science team at Facebook, now Meta. So I think Professor Park or Jaehyuk, or we will hear from Jaehyuk like a lot of interesting things, and please use this opportunity to, get more than just like the interesting topic. So feel free to ask your questions, and I think some of our TAs are going to post places where you can ask anonymous questions. So please make use of that. And I will give the floor to Professor Park or Jaehyuk. If everyone can do a silent clap, that would be great.
All right. Thanks for the great introduction. And it sounds like you're talking about some person much better than me. So let's see. It's real. Let's see. Can you actually give me a second? I'll present first and then share the screen. So can you see my presentation? Yep. So yeah, I'm Jaehyuk Park at KDI School of Public Policy and Management. And today I'm gonna talk about how do you find your question. This is a title. So I'll start from my brief introduction. I mean, honestly, like Professor Cha already talked about it briefly, but yeah, I studied economics in the undergrad, and I did like social computing and network analysis in Graduate School of Cultural Technology for my master under the provision of Professor Cha. And I did my PhD in informatics, and then during my last year of PhD, I worked both in Facebook as a core data science team as a contingent research scientist, also visiting scholar in Kellogg School of Management. And then finally I got a job in like public policy school. So I'm kind of, moving around different areas, not totally independent, but still I cannot tell you I'm an economist. I cannot tell you I'm a sociologist. I cannot tell you I'm a management scientist. I'm somewhere over there. Yeah. And so in my perspective, when I got invited about this seminar, I thought myself like, what I can tell you about data science. So, you are the people who are already great in computational and mathematical techniques, as far as I know. So based on my experience meeting undergrad and graduate student, also like faculty members in the US, in Korea, or from other countries, when I consider my competitive advantage as a data scientist or computational social scientist. And also I heard like this seminar is for more something like casual than just introducing my research project and research. So when I was thinking about my research project, which is about like fashion models, hip hop music, art auction, social places, and labor markets, all different and looks independent, I think my competitive advantage is finding a fun question so I can enjoy my research. And kind of, research is kind of boring process. You have to fight for finding like some of research, and you should see the data every night and stuff. And how if you find a fun question, I think your research process becomes a little more fun. So that's why today I'm going to talk about how I have found fun research questions so I can enjoy to analyze the data. So yeah, I'll start from my master thesis and project, work with Professor Cha from the personal experience in Twitter. So I will give you 4 examples of my research and throughout these examples, I will want to talk to you and share how I started to ask this question for the research project. So as a graduate student in KAIST, probably some of you already do the Twitter and stuff like when your free time or even your working time, the time you're supposed to work. But to me, it was like 2010, 2011-ish. So Twitter is not that popular in Korea. And so I joined a Twitter when doing my master to experience it because I had to work with the Twitter. But it turns out I spent more time to finding graduate student memes and stuff as shown you before. And actually, can you see my, by the way, pointer as well? Yeah, I'm here during this semester. My deadline always try to catch me every night. But yeah, anyway, so, and then one day I found 2 tweets reviewing the same restaurant, but written by 2 different persons. Like one is a graduate student, we're not popular now, graduate student, and the other is a medical doctor who had kind of wealth, and his hospital, I remember that is in Gangnam area, like a rich area and stuff. And the content is very similar, and even the photo to me is more kind of artistic in the content of graduate student, but a lot of people send a mention and message only to the medical doctors. Like, oh my God, this restaurant is so good. Yeah, I'm happy that you had a great dinner and all this kind of thing. While graduate student only got very few mentions from his fellow graduate student, why are you there? And why you didn't go to the lab this weekend and stuff. And some point I was kind of sad that, at the time, like Twitter make everything kind of flat and you can talk with a lot of politicians and Barack Obama for free and like easily without any physical barriers and stuff. But at some point I realized that Twitterverse is not flat. It's just reproducing the offline social hierarchy. And I become to validate it with the data. But I don't know how to do it. I just had this little idea. So I asked to have a meeting with Professor Chai here. And okay, I want to do this. I want to validate this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, academically frame this. So throughout the meeting, she and Professor Lee like give some helps to frame this to the kind of more scientific research questions. So we started to do some research about like actually people living in a richer area in the US got higher likelihood to get a reply from the strangers when they try to talk to the stranger on Twitter compared to the counterparts who their counterparts living in a poor area in the US. And we want to do it like to the thing that systematically. And that becomes my master's thesis under the name of Inconvenient Truth, where you live decides how you're treated online. You can feel some of my anger as a graduate student from my personal experience, hopefully. And but honestly, whenever I talk about this research, I always feel sorry to Professor Cha because I couldn't finish this project. But I want to emphasize again that I'm still really like this topic, so I'll do it because I have more time, hopefully, in a later. So yeah, that's the first example how I found my research question. And let's move to the second question. So title is Dear My Friends in Fashion Industry, Predicting the Success of Fashion Models. So when I started my PhD, in my first semester, I got hired by some of the professors who have worked with like Twitter data or social media data set. And he just asked me, you can initiate any project based on your personal interest. And at that time, I had some friends in fashion industry, and I personally like to see like fashion magazines and stuff. So, and also because I had worked with the Twitter data set, like during the 2 years, I become kind of more interested in kind of new data set, which is Instagram at that point. It was like 2014. So because it also has image data with text data, so I wanted to merge and how can I use a new types of data set? And I found that fashion industry was using Instagram most actively compared to the other industries. And I had some friends who were either really interested in fashion or working in a fashion industry. So, and that means I have heard about how trend is set in the fashion industry and how things are working in a fashion industry. So I talked to my colleagues, like two postdocs, that I want to work on some fashion industry using the Instagram data set. So we started to have a meeting periodically. And someday, my colleague find one website, fmd.com or fashionmodeldirectory.com. And this is actually a database for fashion models in the world. And this database contains all the information like physical attribute, agency information, career path of all fashion models in the world, like their eye color, hair color, body size, all that things. And since I already have some little knowledge about the industry, but still more, I wanted to know more. So I began to survey more kind of studies in sociological studies about fashion model industry and looked up some of the like Netflix documentaries and all the stuff about fashion models. So later we start to do some project about fashion model industry. And that's how this paper actually titled Starting the Age of the Instagram, Predicting Success within the Fashion Model Industry Using Social Media. And this project, initiated my personal experience with my friends hanging out, drinking beer and stuff, and aligned with the kind of new website we found, becomes kind of covered by a lot of media, including Vogue and like Harper's Bazaar, some of the fashion magazines, or some of the academic media like communication of ACM, or like very public news media like CBS News, because it was one of the first attempts to apply the machine learning models to fashion model industry and try to predict something at that point. Okay, this is my kind of second example how I found interesting questions for myself. And let's move on to the third one, My Good Old Days in Hongdae and Sinchon. And the title is Hip Hop Visualizing the Realism of Life in Actuality. So actually, this part visualizing the realism of life in actuality is from the lyric of Life's a Bitch by Nas featuring AZ, which is a classic, legendary rap song in 1994. I want to emphasize it because I love this song. Yeah. So I want to tell you because I think a lot of you are very like much younger than my generation. So I want to briefly talk about a little like situational context, like Hongdae in early 2000s. So at that time, like in the world, like hip hop music becomes a kind of major genre. Before the 1990s, they're legendary like rap songs, but still it's more popular within very like limited demographic, not like pop 10, like that kind of thing. So it becomes more major genre in the pop scene in the US. So you probably heard like Eminem, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Nelly, Ludacris, Missy Elliott, all that kind of popular rap lyric rappers and like musicians like coming up in 2000s. And in Korea, a lot of new hip hop and dance clubs are opened in Hongdae and Sinchon, where I did my undergrad. So every night or almost every 2 nights, I went to Hongdae and Sinchon, go to the nightclubs. Like this is actually a picture. I got this picture like actually the blog article written in 2004. So it was really hard because there are rarely records about 2004 at that time. But living like my night in these kind of places every night, and also there was a like club day, so 10 nightclubs are joined together. So if you buy the one ticket, then you can move around 10 different clubs with one ticket during the whole night, and it's like monthly event. So I never like missed those kind of things. So yeah, that's my 20s. And because I become really interested in the rap music and hip hop music during my 20s, I made some friends who are really into hip hop music and they're even teenagers. And they introduced me like the world of underground hip hop music as well. So from my undergrad and things, I periodically check those kind of websites, this kind of website like undergroundhiphop.com and ohula.com. Ohula.com is user generated a website like a database of rap lyrics. And the good thing about this is it includes all the very rare underground rap lyrics, not only about like pop rap lyrics. So because people just with their kind of as a fan, they just uploaded all the lyrics with all different slangs and stuff. So I already checked like some of the rap lyrics I want to know and that kind of things from my 20s. So this is just me and as my musical preference. And during my PhD, like earlier my PhD, about like after 10 years of my good old days, I had a chance to have a lunch with a sociologist named Fabio Rojas at Indiana University. And actually the chance is coming through my advisor, academic PhD advisor, that, oh, I talked about, I had a lunch with him and he was interested in your master's thesis and he want to have a lunch with you. And so, yeah, I'm happy to do that. And then I checked his kind of CVs and his research interest and stuff. And as you can see, I found that, okay, he had researches on like social movement, especially like African Americans and minorities and street movement and that kind of things. And I could find some of his actual photo. He was joined some of the social movements. Then in my brain, how I thought about how I can initiate a new project with him to make a synergy between my personal interest like hip hop music and his kind of expert like social movements, social and political issues for minorities. So when we had a lunch, I just asked him like, if I can crawl all the rap lyrics from 1980s to now, do you think we can make some cool research project about how rap lyrics reflect real social issues and conditions? And he was really like amazed. Yeah, sure. And do you know where we can get those kind of data? Yeah, I know the website and I already checked the website because it's a very, as you can see, this Ola.com is like very poorly structured. So, the first or second year computer science student can code this. It's not like super well, they don't like prohibited the crawling and stuff. So I already checked that, yeah, I can easily quote all the rap lyrics on that website. It includes all the underground rap lyrics. And I counted the number of rap lyrics and it's more than like 65,000 from 1980s to 2015. So this is so amazing. So that's how we started this rap project about the topic, how rap lyrics reflect our current society. and still it's ongoing project. So, but I added some word embedding techniques, and I try to find, because the one of the most difficult part about analyzing weblytics in sociology is they are using so different language, so it's so difficult to find out the similar words, like what's the words for gun, what's the word for shot, and stuff like that. And that's why I applied in word embedding. And as you can see here, it worked amazing. Like gun, pistol, get, heater, burner, Beretta, Tech 9, 44 is 44, which is like 44 millimeter, what is that, the gun. And 45, as you can see here, 44, Tech and Beretta is a company to make guns. So they use those kind of words as a meaning of gun. And word embedding find that when I just train the model, word embedding model with Replytics, the model can find this words greatly. So I tried to check the correlation between the increase and decrease of those words in Replytics across the year with the related social statistics, like for violence, what about like a violent in crime rate across the year, or for misogyny, what is like misogynistic crimes, or like sexual abuse and that kind of crimes. And we can find some correlation, and still it's ongoing research. So I would like to share more about the research later. But still, this is how I started initiate my new project with a new person based on my good old days. And maybe this would be the last example I will share you today, like a book I found during the date, People, Place, and Ties. So I want to start to talk about how I become to work with the Facebook or in Facebook. So before that, I worked with the data team in LinkedIn to generate the labor flow network using the older records of users, LinkedIn users, career records of LinkedIn users. So I created a labor flow network between companies based on the flow between the companies, how many people moved from company A to B, and etc. And then after I did it, I had a chance to meet a manager in core data science team at Facebook. And I only have like 2 or 3 minutes because it's end of his keynote speech, and there are a long line of people like graduate student and other faculty members tried to talk with him with a little short moment. And I only have like 2 or 3 minutes. And during the 3 minutes, I talk about, okay, I have worked with this data, LinkedIn data set to create the labor flow network. But personally, I'm more interested in like social inequality, economic inequality. So, and I found out that Facebook recently opened a new service at that time, like jobs. So Facebook users can find their jobs, nearby jobs on the internet, like on the Facebook webpage. So I wonder if I can create a labor flow network of Facebook users, which is consists of more underprivileged population, to help them finding jobs easier. So, oh, if you had a job this year before, then most people likely to move this kind of jobs or move on to the change in the industry as a like this job, etc. And actually, the manager really liked that idea. And oh yeah, that's actually really good and helpful for the Facebook service as well. So I wanted to do it, like join that project. And so he gave me the business card. And then he asked me, could you write a like very short research proposal, like 2 or 3 pages to about like writing what kind of data do you need, and what kind of question you want to ask, and what kind of analysis you will do with this kind of data, like research proposal. So I said, yeah, of course, I will do that. And then come back to my lab and I work with my advisor, PhD advisor. We submit a proposal about like creating this, and then it's admitted. So that's how I started to work with Facebook for this kind of project. And because Facebook do not have a branch in Bloomington, Indiana, where I did my PhD, and the nearest branch of Facebook office was Chicago. So I moved to Chicago to live there to go to the office because they only allow to use Facebook data inside of the office at that time after the Cambridge, analytic happened. So I moved to Chicago, and at that time, one day, I had a date with my ex-girlfriend in somewhere like a Wicker Park in Chicago. It's one of the kind of hipster area in Chicago. And suddenly when we were walking through the Wicker Park, suddenly it rained. So we needed somewhere to get inside to avoid the rain. And we found some of the book cafe in nearby. And actually, this is a photo of that book cafe I found on the internet. And then we start to just browse the books while we were waiting for our coffees. And then she just, my ex-girlfriend just recommended me one book that, oh, I think that you like this book. And oh, what is that about? And then she talked about like, oh, this is, I know you're interested in like social inequality and people and underprivileged people and infrastructure and that thing. And this is about like, as you can see here, how social infrastructure can help fight inequality, polarization, and the decline of civic life. And so, yeah, that looks cool, and start to read and check. And I really like at that point. And so I bought a book and I read, and I really love this book. And because this book gives some of the example of local libraries and local community centers and local parks, how it helps our civic community more kind of healthier and sustained. So I really like this book, and so even during my like a short chat with my Facebook colleagues before our meeting started, usually at the beginning of our Zoom meeting, stuff, yeah, how have you been? Like, how it's going? Yeah, everything's good. And then I talked about this book that, oh, actually, I found a really interesting book, Places for the People, and it's about this kind of thing. And then, so I told them, oh, if after our current project, maybe with the Facebook data, I think we can check this kind of things again with like, validating this book, what this book says. And then I found out that actually my boss, the manager, Facebook manager whom I work with, also work with this author, Eric Kleinberg. And then he said, oh, I'm also working with Eric. And yeah, I'm glad that you love that book. And I delivered the message that you like that book. And yeah, that would be my great pleasure. So, and then we start on project meeting and as usual. But at some point, we found out that our data is not enough to analyze the labor market in a way I proposed initially. So we needed to change our topic to a different direction to do something. And then suddenly my colleague reminds me that about this book, like, oh, do you remember you talked about that book, about the Eric's book and stuff like, yeah, of course, I love that book too still. And then what about we change the topic in this more kind of into that way? So I asked him that, is that okay that we just change the topic totally different way? We started from kind of economic questions, but now we are talking about social places. Is that okay? And then my manager said, sure, as long as it's interesting and social, like a good questions that help people or help Facebook or whatever, which totally okay, we're open. So then I'm happy to do this rejection because I really like this book. And that's why, so we started to discuss whether we can do something about how social places mediate social relationships. And that's how we started a project titled People, Places, and Ties, Landscape of Social Places and Their Social Network Structures. And still, we just finished the draft and not published yet. But basically, it's about how different types of social places are spread across the country based on Facebook pages data. And based on their Facebook pages, social network on Facebook pages, how different types of social places mediate different types of social network, and can re-identify the network structure based on the types of social places. That's kind of project I'm working on with Facebook. And this is how we started to this project in that way, which is from just one random date and one book I found during the date. So this is kind of 4 examples I want to share, and I want to summarize some as a take-home message for some of you looking for your own fun questions. First, have more fun. Go outside, enjoy more. If there's a faculty members, maybe they'll hate me, but we're, letting graduate student more like go outside, and again, undergrad student go outside, enjoy more, but I think it will help. So go outside, enjoy more, and meet and chat with more people, hang out with more friends in diverse groups. Because usually, because of homophily, your friends are more likely to be like you. So if you're only hanging out with your close friends, you're very stuck in a small world and small opinions. If you want to see the general world and general problems, you have to meet more diverse people and browse popular books, movies, music, and social media periodically to see what others are interested in. And also, I wanted to emphasize that it's really good to understand others not only rationally, but also emotionally. So train yourself to put others' shoes and be more kind of empath. Second, make others know your interests. So I would recommend you to have more casual time with your colleagues, like a coffee, beer, tea time, etc. And casually ask others to introduce you to people related to your interests. So if you have your own interests, like my Facebook example, I'm really into these social places. You have to advertise and let others know what you're interested in. Then your friends or your colleagues or your advisor, whenever they find those kind of opportunity, they will let you know, or they try to link to you. Oh, I remember you're interested in that. You're still interested in? Because I know people, I met some people in a conference, and he was looking for someone in that way. So let your academic advisors and colleagues know the topics you want for the later project. And third, observe the words through your message. So sometimes, at least to me, you are stuck in some of the method. Like for example, at some point, I was stuck in I really like to use word embedding. And I try to find the examples where I can apply the word embedding in different situations. And someday I was waiting for my friend who is try to buy the lipsticks in some beauty shop in the US. So I was just waiting for her, and while she was choosing, I just browse some of the perfumes, like fragrance section, and then the worker there, are you looking for something? And oh, I'm good, but that smells good. What is that? And he started to explain the perfume in based on base note, top note, and middle note. I don't know how many of you are interested in perfume and fragrance, but usually fragrance consists of 3 different notes: top note, middle note, and base note. And top note is the aroma you can smell immediately when you just spray it. And middle note is in the middle, and base note is a kind of aroma that lasts the longest after your smell. So it's kind of remain the smell. And then when I heard, and then he explained every perfume in this 3 notes. And then suddenly in my mind, okay, every perfume has a 3 notes as a sequence. Maybe I can embed it, smell, some perfume embedding space. And I started to think about it. And at the time I had some undergrad students to advise for some research project. So I found, oh, if any of you interested in perfume, I have this idea, and I found some website collecting all the information about perfume based on their top note, middle note, and base notes. So it's not published, and we didn't develop it as a kind of publishable level, but we find that it works really well. So similar smells are spatially embedded in a similar area and stuff. So, but at the time I was into those kind of methods. So whatever I see, I tried to use it and use this method in this context. So, and I think it's really fun to actually check that the perfume smell space is works, and actually got some reward for undergrad research program and stuff. So it's happy, kind of happy ending. So I want to recommend you to train yourself and enjoy the process to view your environment like all different things through the message you're into. And to get a more fun idea, maybe you'd better to make your environment more fun to go hang out more, expose yourself in different environment and more kind of unique environment, then you can find a more fun research questions. And oops, the last one, have a time to check the raw data. So it's more kind of practical when you analyze your data, I think, compared to other like, having fun. But often we have multiple research, but have no idea how to link those research to one interesting stories. And you can understand why this has correlation, why this works in that way, why the distribution looks like that. At that point, reading the raw data for hours maybe it sounds very stupid, like as a computer science student, who are reading the raw data if you have billions of rows or millions of rows? But it can be the best way to understand the context behind your macro level research. Just reading as a kind of fiction or essay of a person, especially if you're working with social media data or some social data, every line or every record is an opinion of people or life of people or records of someone's life. Then when you read through it like a fiction or essay, then at some point you have a really good idea that, oh, that's why this variable has correlated with this variable, or oh, that's why this and this has to have like this kind of relationship, why this and this have to have a negative relationship. So now you can understand better and make a really interesting story. And a lot of times, interesting question can be popped out throughout reading this raw data hours and hours and hours. So yeah, this is kind of presentation I want to share and how I have found it in my research question, how I want you to find your fun questions. And this is my contact. So if you have some fun idea to collaborate with me, or if you have any questions in your academic life or others, just feel free to contact me through the email, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And of course, from now, if you have any question or comment, or if you have your own tips about finding the interesting question, I'd love to share and talk with it. Thank you.
Okay, that's really fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you can stop sharing your screen so that we can see more faces of the students joining, and if you don't mind turning on your camera so that we can have like a face-to-face conversation, that'd be great. So I want to summarize. There are some points that maybe it just went by very quickly, but I wanted to point out a few things. Just like from Jaehyuk and many other excellent data scientists or researchers, I see when people go to conferences, there's a line to talk to famous people. So if you want to talk to famous people, there's really a line. You have to wait in line and you just have like, I don't know, like 30 seconds or 1 minute because there are other people in line too. And it's important to line up, to use that opportunity to pitch your idea, and then you have to ask a good question. That means you have to be thinking before you actually line up. You should be ready. So I think it's the courage that you have to line up. It's not like, oh, I see that famous person, but you actually have to go say hello and say, hi, I'm this person and I want to talk to you. Okay, another thing is, I think it's also important to connect passion with your work. And I think Jaehyuk calls that the fun questions. So that's really great. And the final lesson is get rid of the romance. So being a data scientist sounds really fancy, but it's actually your time with your monitor and your data that's like accounting the most. So I think I wanted to emphasize those. So let's go to the questions. I think we have some questions that were submitted, and Gabrielle and Danu can help me ask the questions on behalf of these anonymous people who ask questions, and Theo can answer.
I actually have a question of my own before, if that's
Yep.
okay. So the first one, so a lot of grad students actually suffer with time management, right? So they have no idea how to balance like classes, research, or life in general. And as you said in your presentation, actually having a life outside the lab is important, not like for yourself and also for your own work, right? Like you see a lot of things and you apply that to your work. How you in your grad school days, how would you balance that? Like, how would you balance working, but also going to home day?
Good question, and I'm still looking for the balance. And by my case, I gave up the good grades for the classes. You have to give up something. So I don't have a good grade in undergrad, master, and PhD. Even my advisors give me just B plus or B something in graduate school, which is like the lowest grade. But at the same time, what I realized is, a lot of timing, because, I just graduated, so I'm more like a graduate student, staying on the desk in 10 hours doesn't mean that you actually work on 10 hours. And whenever I measure the actual time I work on, and actually the time my brain works well is not more than 4 hours-ish. So if you work really hard 4 hours, your brain is just, you got droned. So I think, to me, I just set up a fun event. Like, okay, we're going to nightclub tonight, or this weekend, we're going to the nightclub. And then I feel kind of chased or feel not comfortable in a Friday, or the night before or something. And that it makes me work harder or more focusing on more seriously than before. And then I just finished up what I'm doing and enjoy first. And then, then you will take care of it. You'll figure it out. So make the fun time and set up the fun time first, and then let yourself figure it out later. And probably you're a good student, I know. So you'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Yep. Oh, and one more thing. I think doing exercise regularly, it's really important, because you have more kind of energy to study and enjoy and everything and be nice to others. It's related to all different things. So always separate some of your time for exercise, whatever you want to do.
Okay, just going through some other questions. I think Minja's question has already been answered during the talk. Okay, so let's go to Wen Chao's question, and then I will also open up the question to the floor if anyone on the live has a question. And then we have a couple of questions that was submitted to the anonymous board. So Wen Chao, are you here?
Yes. Let me check that. I noticed that your previous professions are related to the economics and the culture, and then you are now working as a data scientist. Can you give us an idea of what the thinking of data science have contributed to the study of these disciplines?
So, econ and culture and management side, this is more kind of discipline categorized based on topic. So for example, like economics is a research on economy and different types of like agent in economics, or different scale, like microeconomics, macroeconomics, or labor economics, or different types of like game theory, all are kind of studying about some topic. But meanwhile, the data sciences sounds more like kind of methods. So in that perspective, they can be always like you can be a data scientist in all different kind of topical disciplines, I think, based on what topic you're interested in. But still, as long as you can find some of the applications or the area you can apply the data science tools, then you can answer much more questions that other economists or other like field experts cannot use or cannot apply. So you can make your own kind of competitive advantage in that field by, preparing yourself with like some advanced skills and techniques. But to do that, you have to study and you have to understand some of the interesting questions and existing theories and some kind of background knowledge about that kind of topical fields as well. So it's kind of not easy, but still you have to think about what would be your competitive advantage in that field. Then definitely you can find some sweet spot that no one can do, but only you can do.
Okay.
I'm not sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. And before we go to the floor for the open questions, just like, can you give us like a really quick, like one sentence response for by the time you were graduating master's from KAIST, did you ever feel that you were gonna have this kind of a job like now, and what kind of life you would be living?
No, zero idea. But at that time I was thinking about, I wanted to study more, but at the time I didn't think about my job and things after graduate. I just wanted to study more, and I just keep doing more and learning more, because I just realized that, okay, I'm super stupid. I have zero knowledge to anything. Like I'm not good at econ. I'm not good at computer science. I'm just in the middle of somewhere. I feel lost. So let's see if I have 5 or 6 more years in PhD, maybe I know something, because to me, PhD seems like they know something. But yeah, but life is fun and we don't know what's happening. Yeah.
I remember Jaehyuk always had really good questions. So I think in that terms, also some positivity he had. So that term it's the same. Okay, from the floor, do we have live questions?
I have a question, like about all the papers that you introduced. They have such interesting titles. I'm just curious, like, how do you usually make a title, come up with an idea for your titles?
It's good questions, but yeah, as you can see, some of titles are from my favorite web lyrics. So if you have a more kind of personal experience, and after you get some result, you can make your kind of own message, and then you become able to like think about what kind of title would be like effectively or more kind of fancy way to deliver the inside message that I wanted to deliver. Like for example, like, okay, graduate student treated really badly compared to the medical doctors in Twitter. And then I found some of the documentary titled Inconvenient Truth, then, oh yeah, that's actually a good title to start with. And that's how I find a day and people's titles. So, and read more books and browse more kind of novels, fictions, and movies. Also kind of way that I can, borrow their ideas and to my title to make it more kind of impactful. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say it's more like love of your work. So you could see Jaehyuk's really mingling his life together with research. So it's always thinking and becoming creative. Any other question from the floor? Okay, then let's go to maybe one question from the anonymous board, and then let's wrap up. Hey, Tanu, would you like to ask one question?
Okay, I just read the question from the anonymous. And the question was that I heard that academia is very unforgiving towards journalists. As someone with such a diverse background, can you share some tips on how to survive in academia?
Good question, and I don't know about tips, but but you should, as a kind of interdisciplinary researcher, you always think about your position and how to strategically position yourself in where. But also at the same time, compared to the previous times, these days people are more generous about like, researcher, they traditionally, they're really going deep into the one very specific questions or field, and that's considered as a good researcher. But at some point these days, as a kind of interdisciplinarity becomes kind of, trend, people also value some of the people who can be a bridge between different disciplines. But to do that, you should know many people in this different discipline. At the same time, you should understand not as much as like expert in that field, but you should understand both sides. So after you get prepared in that area, but honestly, some area becomes much more conservative than the others. So for example, I think economics and economists is more conservative about like kind of new method and data science and big data compared to the management scientists. So business school people are much more open to whatever method as long as it works and as long as it's helpful for business. And sociologists, sociology is also kind of open to the kind of new methods and stuff, but econ is more conservative. But still, as this method can give them a new kind of way or new view and more application, they have to accept those kind of new methods. So make them being like, must adopt our method is kind of one way. And I think these days, like at least in data science, it becomes more and more popular, even in economics. So that's kind of good news, a little good news, but still I have no like perfect tips, except like thinking about it strategically yourself, like as a where I should put myself between whom and whom, and who are the people in that field that value of my kind of research methods and stuff.
Okay, so thank you for that question. So I think this is great, and we'd like to thank the speaker for spending time with us and sharing your insights. And we also want to thank all the audience for joining in today and participating in the discussion. So thank you so much. So this wraps up the very first talk of the AI plus X Forum talk series, Meet the Data Scientist. And we hope that you can join for our next series, which will be announced by email. Alrighty. So thank you, Jaehyuk, and I hope to see everyone soon in the next session. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for your time, your attention, and yeah, have a great day, rest of life.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.